Hi, folks. Good afternoon. Oh, it's lovely to see so many of you coming on in. Hi. Just a reminder, you can have your camera off if you want to. I am obviously recording this for the people who need the replay. So if you want to have your camera off, then that's totally fine. Let's let everybody in who wants to be in. I love the live energy. It's so nice. It's really different, isn't it, to be able to join in live. So I do appreciate you making the time. Um, let's let everybody in who wants to come. Da, da, da. Just be a couple of seconds and then we can get going. If you have not already got it, we're going to need note paper and pens. If you do have any post-it notes, they can be helpful. If you've got any Sharpies, also helpful. A little bit of my signature in terms of the way that I like to teach. So you're very welcome to grab that stuff and a drink to get started. We'll be about an hour, so an hour's worth of teaching and journaling, and then there'll be 15 minutes of questions. So if you have got any questions about my audience development process or about anything that I've talked about in the class, then I will be around at the end to answer questions. I'm going to record those as well because they're always so helpful to everybody else. So if you want to put them in the chat right at the end, like wait until the end, I can get to them. Or you can come off mute and ask them right at the end as well. So an hour of teaching, journaling, lovely things, and then some questions. Okay, so it's a couple of minutes past now. So I think we could say hello to folks. So if you want to put in the chat where you're joining us from, if you want to share any of your online links, you're so welcome to do that. Doesn't have to be Substack. I know some of you will know me from Sparkle on Substack and teaching on Substack, but I do exist over the internet airwaves as well and have a career worth of experience of audience development and engagement. So you can share whichever is the most prominent link to you. You can share your website, you could share your Instagram handle, you could share your Substack, whatever you'd want to share is absolutely fine. And then I can get a sense of who is here. I was just having a look at your names coming in. Always so lovely. More people coming. Oh, Kendall's here, Julia's here, but she has to go. Josephine's here, Jen's here, Izzy's here, Imogen's here. Hi, Gronya, Jill, Eva, Eleanor, Davina, Christina, Claire, Bethany's here. Oh, hi, Beth, my little neighbour and friend. Angela's here. Annie's coming. Oh, this is so exciting. Sarah's here, Lee's here, Lauren's here. Lovely. Oh, great. Okay, great. So, some of you know me, but for the people that don't know me, I am Claire Venus and I am an engagement consultant, mentor, Substack expert, and audience development geek. So, one of the reasons I wanted to teach this class was I am really aware that there's a whole load of things go on with my longer term visioning that I don't really talk about anywhere. And so I wanted to build this container so that I could talk about my processes, systems, the way that I get to grips with keeping the joy that is involved in developing an audience, a global audience, because I do find it joyful. And I think a lot of that is down to the fact that I worked in person for years. So all of my work needed to attract the right audiences in and the right participants in for it to be a success. Numbers were really important in my funding application. So I had to make sure that what I was doing in terms of the marketing that I was setting up, the consultants I was working with, the audience development plans we had from ground zero were going to work. So I am really passionate about it. And I think that one of the main things that we sometimes struggle with is we're in this cycle of creating, but we're not thinking as much about the person it's going to land with. So there's a bit of a mismatch sometimes when we go into the deeper work of, well, who is this for? And what's the type of person who is resonating with my words, resonating with what I post across the airwaves? So I wanted to just try and break it down a bit for us all, go back into some of the audience development planning that I used to do and teach you a couple of those things, and just get into it with you in a way that feels sustainable and fun. So I revisit this a couple of times a year, but it is very embodied for me now. It was definitely surprising when I first started working online because I was kind of just throwing spaghetti out to see what happened. I didn't expect a global audience, but I wanted that. Like that was one of my goals. So being expansive and thinking about what you want is kind of like the first step through audience development. But yeah, it's been beautiful. So I've built an audience online of, I don't even know anymore, like I've stopped tallying, but it's definitely over 20,000. So I've got 16,000 through the Substack network. I've got YouTube subscribers. I've got Instagram followers. I've got people that connect with me in other places, my website and Pinterest, all of that gorgeous stuff. I'm very conscious about the platforms that I create on, and I'm very conscious about not burning myself out thinking that I have to, just because someone says, oh, TikTok's going really well, like it's all in line with my nervous system and what I want to do. So primarily, what I used to teach was choosing two platforms that you really resonate with and you like spending time on. Because if you like spending time on them and that feels joyful and fun, you'll also hopefully come round to creating on them. So that was one of the things that I used to talk about. So we'll go into that a little bit. Um, but first, we're going to do an exercise. So if you've had a chance to introduce yourself in the chat and share your links, that's perfect. I'm just seeing who's here. Obviously, it's 12 noon UK time, so mainly probably be UK and European type folks. Bournemouth, Hampshire, Northumberland, Nottingham, Surrey, Northumberland again, Ireland, Stockholm. Hi, Josephine from Stockholm. This is so lovely. Thank you all for being here. Isn't the internet magic? Like, isn't that amazing that we can just speak to people across the world? I just love that. And then the Americans and Canadians will catch up a bit later. So, first exercise, guys, in terms of thinking about the concept of audience alchemy, I want you to take just 5 minutes to list out all of the personal things that you like to talk about online and all of the professional attributes that you have, if you like. So, if this was me, I would be talking about my professional self as an audience development manager, a project manager for festivals. I would be talking about the personal side of slow live Northumberland life. I quite like to grow dahlias. The personal stuff that kind of brings me as a person to life and isn't the identity of the career that I had and what I used to do. So it's like two separate lists. And I think that this can be really helpful just in terms of breaking down, okay, like this is an identity that I stepped into for work and it makes me tick and I love it. Or actually, this is an identity that I evolved out of and is outdated now. But we need to see it all in front of ourselves. So if you split your page into two, just down the middle, and you just write personal on one side and professional or pro on the other, we'll just look a bit like that. And we're just going to list out everything that we like to talk about online in the personal and everything that we think that we have and are in terms of our professional self on the other side. I'll put that in the chat for you guys and I'll give you 5 minutes to have a go and see what comes up for you. It's so beautiful to see you taking this so studiously because there's so much, isn't there? There's so much that we can say about ourselves. And actually, in the comfort of a piece of paper, hopefully that feels like a really nice thing. And that's the idea behind this exercise. It's like, oh, wow, yeah, I've done a lot of things. I like a lot of things. And this is all in this beautiful, comfortable container of our own notebook. So we don't have to put this anywhere yet. So hopefully you've come up with a few things. One of the questions that was dropped in was about, okay, but if my work is also the stuff that I like, so Jo is a forager, like that's her identity, but she also does some of that for work. It exists in both columns. So I am creative for work, but I'm also a creative personally. I'm creative and I don't feel like sharing that on the internet, but I'm creative and I do feel like sharing it on the internet. So it exists in both columns and that's fine. So we're going to come back to that, but we're going to jump into our gingerbread person. If you've not seen this exercise before, there's a million different ways to do it, but I think it really helps us to get super clear on who our audience is, what the avatar of our audience is. And of course, it's not one person, or if it is one person, yay, well done, more people are coming. So this is our lovely gingerbread person. Obviously that does not look like a gingerbread at all, but no judgment. But basically, this is what you're going to draw out next. Now, this avatar, this person, this representation of the entire global internet that we are speaking to in our work is here because they either want connection, education, inspiration, or to feel something. It could be all of those things. It could be one of those things. So when your person finds your world, either on Instagram or on TikTok or on Substack or as part of your newsletter or on your website, they will connect to one of those things that I've just said. So connection, education, inspiration, or feeling something. So with all of that, in the work that you currently do, can you choose and let me know in the chat what you think it is? So I'll put them in. It's connection, education, inspiration, and feeling. The connection piece could be like, oh, hey, me too. The education piece could be, I've got something to teach you, I've got a PDF to share. The inspiration piece could be, I find this really inspiring because I'm aspiring to do that in my life, or I want to do that. So it could be like home renovation, it could be writing on Substack, it could be anything like that. Inspiration and then feeling. And the feeling one tends to be more like your activists, arts activists, or people that want to shift the narrative, create change. So when we connect to somebody's work that makes us feel something, so we might feel held, we might feel compelled to do something, that's the feeling piece. Sometimes we just feel soothed and that's fine, but I want you to clearly understand what your work is in the world to do, and then we'll go into the gingerbread person. So see if you can pick from that list, and remember you can have longer after class to look at this stuff. This is just the intuitive, am I here for connection? Am I here for the hey me toos? Am I here to educate people? Am I here to inspire people and get people to know that they can do the thing as well? Am I here to help people feel something or change something? Which one is it? Is it all of them? Inspiration, Josephine says yes. And I think, Josephine, because I know your work, I think it is also connection, education, and feeling. I think it's all four. I think people will be really inspired by you as a person, but I think they'll feel really educated by the way that you teach. I've changed my camera and I'm like doing a mirror thing. It's weird. So that my calendars are the right way around. So yeah, it can be different at different times. And sometimes the nuance in our long form work or in our audio work or in our sharing a reel on Instagram gives a slightly different essence to what we are trying to do. Imogen saying, funny, I wanted to be educated when I started, but when I started to write on my Substack, but I actually think it's all the other three now I look at them. So is there the difference between inspiration and feeling? So inspiration is like aspirational, like someone might come along and be a complete beginner to Substack and find my Substack education space and be like, oh, great, like I need to be inspired, I need to be motivated, I need to have accountability, this is a space for me. And the feeling is more about feeling compelled to change something. So more like your activist, or if journalists write on Substack, usually that sort of cuts through the fourth wall and somebody feels something. So they might feel angry, they might feel emotional, they might feel compelled to do or change something, they might be compelled to share. So a lot of the sort of more clickbaity headline type things that gets people riled up, they want to share, they want to write in the comments, they want to do that sort of thing with the feeling. But it can also be feeling comfort and feeling belonging as well. Um, yeah, share more of my poetry. Is that feeling or inspiration? Both. Yeah, both. Because someone might read that poetry and think, I'd really like to write poetry. I feel really inspired. Without the education piece from you, they might go off and seek that somewhere else. But they might also just want to feel comforted of a Sunday afternoon with a cup of tea and read some poetry. What a beautiful thing. Gorgeous. So it's just being clear in your mind. I've produced this poetry, I've published this poetry to enable people to feel comforted or to feel seen or to feel like they're part of something. So the connection piece might come in as well. See what you think. Okay. So back to your gingerbread person, you can draw a better one than me. If you draw it on an A3 or an A4 piece of paper, then you'll have plenty of space. So this person wanders into your world online. Pick your main platform, whichever your main platform is. So you could pick Instagram. They've found you on Instagram. Now, obviously on Instagram, it's all about the follow. Like, how do we get the follow? And then how from the follow do we get them to actually see our work? And then how from that do we make a sale if we're a business owner? On Substack, it's a slightly different mechanism. So you might have somebody read something that's incredibly nuanced and knowledgeable and then join in with the comments and then subscribe. So things can happen in a different way. So just hold the person, the last person that sort of came into one of your online worlds, and hold the action that they took. So whether it was a subscribe, whether it was a follow, it doesn't really matter, but you're just trying to understand, okay, who is this person? What do you know about them? So if you want to go back and check who was your last subscriber on Substack or who last followed you on Instagram, you can do that. But what we want to get really clear on when we're doing the work around audience alchemy is, who is this person? Like, why have they kind of decided to take the action to say, I want more of this? What do we know about them? So I'll put that in the chat. Who is this person? What do we know about them? So if you do that little exercise and have a little look if you don't already have it in your head, and then the next part, using the gingerbread person, is to write on the inside how that person feels, and then on the outside what they want. So I already kind of led you into some of this thing that they might want, which is around connection, education, inspiration, feeling, but you're going to add whatever it is that you do to that. So if it's Joe, it might be more education around foraging and to feel part of a community and connected to something longer term. Like, that's quite a long sentence, but they might want all of that. So you would start thinking about what they want on the outside. How they feel on the inside might be like, I don't know where to start. I feel really nervous about it. I don't know whether there's anything safe to forage. I don't know whether I'm allowed, like, do I need landowners' permission? They might feel excited, like, I have been looking for somebody to teach me this for the longest time. Like, I really see this as part of my sustainable future. I want to take my kids along. So all of those feelings that wash over the person that is really excited to find your work and your online world. Is that making sense? Is everybody okay? So Imogen's saying it can be different on Instagram as opposed to Substack. I feel like it is, but maybe it's more aligned than I think. Yeah, so sometimes it's like you don't want to be too sort of basic around who the person is, but usually for me it'll be somebody who's female identifying, not always. It'll be someone who connects with me because I am a working mum, not always. It'll be someone who connects because I'm creative and they see that in themselves. So either they haven't had a creative job, they've had a corporate job, but they want more creativity in their life because they recognize what I'm saying about creativity's impact on well-being, or they just want to be more creative. They kind of want to find a way within what they do to turn on creativity. So this is obviously built up over a long, long time, and I've got far more to say about this, but it's just that thing of like, okay, what are the things? There's so many, like hundreds upon hundreds of things that we can get into in the bigger program. But just for today, it's like intuitively, what are the things that we know? What do they want and how do they feel? Okay, so what do they want on the outside of the gingerbread. And then how do they feel on the inside? There we go. Pop that in the chat. I'll have to remember to do a little download for everybody that's doing the replay. Eva's saying, is it how they might feel when they arrive, or how they feel once they've read your offerings? So it's that thing of them going, oh, this is for me. So it's them recognizing in your words. So if that's Substack, they might read a piece, but if that's Instagram, they look at your grid, they look at your bio, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a bit of me. Like, I want to follow this person. I want to stay connected to that person. So for you, Eva, it could be somebody that connects around the creative stuff you speak about. It could be that someone connects around chronic illness and that you're sharing really openly and honestly your journey with that. So it's those points of connection I'm trying to tease out for you all so that you feel really clear. It could be they just like your crack. Eva's got really good crack, so they might just think you're funny and they're like, I really think she's funny and I need a bit more of light and laughter in my world. So it could be that as well. Yeah. Um, so Lou's saying, could you say that mechanism for Instagram again? Get them to follow, get them to see my work. Okay, so with Instagram, it's multi-layered and complicated because there's a lot we can do there. So let's take trial reels, for example. So trial reels on Instagram are top of funnel content. Stay with me. So it's someone who doesn't know you at all, and you're showing them a video. A reel is always a video about you and your work. So it's not really at that point about the nuance of everything. It's a bit more of an introduction to something that you can help them with, especially if you do the education thing. If it's something that you want to connect with them, and it's something you think that they'll have in common with you, it might be linked to your professional life. So it might be like, I love to meditate, or I love to do yoga, and you're trying to bring them in that way. If they're landing on your grid, then obviously you've got more of an opportunity to showcase what you're about. So you might have your top 3 pinned post, and then they might say, oh, this person's written a book. This person likes to talk about audience development. This person likes to talk about music. So you're just trying to understand what is the point of connection that's brought them in. Like, what is it? Like, what is the thing? What is the feeling that they've had wash over them? Where's the connection? So again, we can go much, much deeper with this stuff, but it's just to give you that intuitive nudge for clarity. Like, the idea is that we get you to a place of clarity as well. Jill's saying, couldn't it be that they want me to sub or follow them back? Love this. Yes, could definitely be that. And so in that, we would have a set of rules. So I spoke to a member about this week, and it was about decision making. So the quickness, the amount of, I'm going to articulate this. The reason that I have grown my business and my audience to the level that I have is mainly down to how quickly I make decisions. So if somebody follows me on Substack, I don't even see it. If someone follows me on Instagram and I feel like I've got time, I might check out their profile and see if there are any points of connection and that I'm interested in following them back. I just have a set of rules for everywhere that I show up and what I do there. Once you create a set of rules, it all becomes quite easy. You definitely don't have to be thinking, well, they followed me, so I should follow them. Last night, my husband showed me someone that keeps subscribing to his Substack and then unsubscribing. So they must just have a technique, a tactic that goes around loads of people who are in the lower numbers of subscribers and subscribes so that it pops up, so that then they check out their profile. They also lie in their bio and say they've got 50,000 subscribers and they've only got it's still quite a lot. I think they've got like 17,000. So there are all sorts of tactics going on all the time. We're focusing on a genuine connection because it is out there and it is possible. And remember, the people who are excited to read your work, listen to what you're about, come to your classes, are already waiting to turn around and see you. Like, they're already waiting. They're already waiting in the wings. They're so excited for your performance, whatever it's going to be on the stage. So we don't have to play the games. We really don't, honestly. Like, there's no game playing needed in audience alchemy because we just connect to the pure magic of what we have to share and how it meets an audience. We just get really clear on that, and then the rest of the stuff can fade away. So if you've got time to check out that profile and you want to, and you think it's genuine, beautiful. If you haven't got time because you're doing and living in your beautiful life and writing your beautiful words, then we just ignore. Yeah, hopefully that answers that. Yeah, the unsubscribes might be because they want to toggle um the app uh, to email but keep unsubscribing by mistake, so I have to resubscribe. All the technical sides of things. No, I know, I get it. I get it. I really do. I know there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance. And I am being quite cutthroat because I've had to be really conscious about my decision making so that I can be there for my kids' pick up at the end of school. I've had to be quite conscious about my decision making because my daughter had to stay home for longer than I would have liked because she was a pandemic baby and I couldn't get her in the nursery without her bringing home like all sorts of like horrible viruses that just upset the family dynamic. So for me, my work windows are always very focused and very clear. Like I just don't have time to faff about. And I've just taken that forward with the way that I've built my systems. And that's really what I want to teach you. It's lovely to have a faff about for sure, but it doesn't always move the needle. So it's just about being really kind to ourselves in the time that we've got and being really strategic and focused if we want to really alchemize and understand the audience that we're bringing in. Okay, so how are we getting on? I've chatted a lot there. How are we getting on with the feeling of the person and then what they want around the outside? Um, Oh, joyful about supporting me, reciprocity. Yeah, Joe. So I think if someone was landing in Joe's world and she saw that they had an interest in gardening or being outdoors or outdoor education of any sort, I think that could be definitely about reciprocity. It wouldn't have to be that, but it's just recognizing that people definitely want to connect, and that's what it's about. Um, Yeah, it's fine to be confused, Lou. It's fine. So, and it's not one person. We're just looking for attributes of a person. So, for you, Lou, and anybody else that is stuck, the best thing to do with this is take it back to somebody who you have worked with in person. So, probably we've all had jobs in the real world that weren't online jobs. So when you hold somebody in the real world that you've met, that you've sat with in the 3D, that you've drank coffee with, or herbal tea, or whatever you've done, what do you know about them? And if they've stayed connected to your world and your work, or if they're in your friendship circle, that might be an easier place to start. So when I first started my online business, I had two people that connected to everything that I did. So they bought every course I put out, they paid for my Substack newsletter in 2022 when I first started it. And for me, I built from the ground up with those people in mind. So I understood or started to understand what it was that kept those people coming back to read everything I posted, to buy my courses and connect with me. And it was very nuanced. They were very, very different people. So when a marketing expert gave me a similar exercise to do and asked me, where does your ideal client shop? What does your ideal client do? What's their annual income? What do they drive? I was like, I don't know. Like, why does that stuff matter? Like, I want to know what lights them up. Like, that's what that is. That's the magic of the piece. So, those two people that I know in real life, what was lighting them up was permission slips, big, creative, expansive thinking, life on their terms, throwing away the rule book, like navigating the messy parts of it and being really open and honest about it. Authenticity, integrity, which links to my values. So, if you want to delve deeper, and that's helpful for this exercise, if the online world feels too dystopian and strange right now, take it to the in person and then let's build it up from there. So, obviously, this class is only an hour, so there's only so much I can like delve into with you as a mentor, but I really want this for you. I want this clarity for you in this hour, and I know we can get there. Okay, so how's everybody else getting on? I'm just having a little look. Okay, so Joe is sharing about the momentum of putting our stuff out there, someone subscribing just yesterday that really helps with that mindset around, okay, like what's going on for that person here? Why do they want to be there? Um, Another place that you can go with this, if you are still really stuck, is surveying your audience or putting some polls out to your audience. So you can do it in Instagram stories, you can do it in Substack with a little poll feature, you can do a Google form survey, just make it less than 10 questions because people, struggle, and just ask them a little bit more about their life, and why they felt connected to like subscribing to you. Obviously, that's maybe a bit much for an Instagram follower, but they might be open to a chat. We just need to get this clear, because this is the single biggest thing that increases our confidence when it comes to showing up online. This is the single biggest thing that increases the momentum that we have around our own legacy and us standing into the spotlight a little bit more. So I know it's a little bit hard at first, but it can be so, so helpful for us to know, okay, like what we are doing is appreciated, what we are sending out in the world is wanted. It can help keep us steady when the unsubscribes come in, because they always do. That it can help keep us steady when the refund requests come in, because they always do. So it's all of that work where it's like, it's all okay because I know who I'm for, and it's fine if the wrong people find me and things happen. Um, okay, I'll move you guys on because we're going to come back to this. So we're going back to our list of the personal and the professional stuff. So the personal and the professional stuff, and we're going to go back into that. So I've got my orange Sharpie and I'm going to link up what I think is a really beautiful and safe thing to connect with the stuff that I put out in the world. So it could be podcast material, it could be Instagram posts, it could be posted in Facebook groups, it could be Substacks, newsletters, it can be anywhere that you show up online. But what are the elements that you're happy to celebrate that link together across your personal and your professional life? So, for example, I've written in my personal life that I like to write. That would link up with being a Substack expert because it's a platform primarily for writers, although obviously we've got the diversity now. On the personal, I've got the fact that I'm multi-passionate about the garden projects that I start. And then on the professional side, I've got the fact that I was a festival manager for many years. So those two things might link up. So see what you've got that might link up across those two columns. If you feel like the professional is very, very separate to the personal, that's okay. Like that's still part of this exercise. But if you think there are things that can link up and that you can talk about in the same sentence. So I would say I used to be a festival manager, and you can totally tell that by the way I approach my gardening. For example, like I would never say that, but you know what I mean? It's like it's there, it's self-expression. This is what we're trying to get to. So see how you get on with that. I'll give you 5 minutes and I'll put the prompt in the chat. Okay, loves, I'll give you another couple of minutes on that. If you want to go into your gingerbread person, remember it's how they feel on the inside and then what they want on the outside. And then your personal and professional list is those points of connection around the things that you love to talk about and the identity that you have in a professional world or had in a professional world if you don't work professionally anymore, if you're retired. Okay, if you're ready to share anything in the chat, feel free. I'll share a little bit of what came up for me, which will help you guys and then anybody on the replay as well. So, bearing in mind, I do this exercise a lot. There is always more to learn. There's always more to learn about the position that our ideal person is in, that our ideal reader is in. The terminology ideal person and ideal reader doesn't mean it's just one person. It just means that we recognize them when they come into our space. So, for example, somebody waded into the comments section of mine and Caro's live replay last night, and it was easy for me to screenshot that to Caro and like have a bit of a laugh about it because he's not our person. Like we don't care, you know what I mean? So I've learnt that over time 5 years ago that like I totally would have spiraled with that and I would have felt all the exposing feelings and it would have been horrible. But because he's not my person, it's like I didn't make this for you. So, it doesn't matter that you feel like you want to have some sort of like patriotic comment in there. Like, I'm just not bothered. I'm a little bit bothered, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like a practice of being like, okay, we're moving on, we're moving on. So, for the work that I'm doing at the moment, so for this audience alchemy work, I know because I asked you all in a survey, and I also have been like thinking about this and sitting with this for the longest time, that how you guys feel is there's not enough time to do the platforms that you want to do. So, in that feeling of there's not enough time, the antidote to that and the way that I want to connect with you all is to remind you that this is a long-term practice to step into. Like, we don't have to do it all by Christmas. We don't have to do it all in quarter 4. Like, this is something that we are leaning into getting more comfortable with every single time we show up. So, I have to remind myself to say that because I am already comfortable, but I definitely wasn't back in the day. So, that's a real learning example for me of like, this is how people feel, so I can reflect that back in the words that I used. I also get that people feel guilty because they can't show up all the time and they feel like they're not keeping up with their peers. They feel confused and overwhelmed about what to post where, and they feel unsure about how to make their work for them longer term and in an evergreen way, which I am really passionate about because we only have so many hours in the day and we shouldn't be at work all the time. So the opportunities and what people want is bite-sized tutorials, like opportunities to learn something and implement it quite quickly. They want to feel seen, they want to feel reassured, they want reminders, they want problem solved, they want to feel expansive and possible. So Because our nervous systems and our collective nervous systems are really struggling to be online at the moment. And I will say that because there is just so much that we've got to process or we're being asked to process. We want to make sure that we're staying connected to the expansive feelings of vision board territory, of where we want to be in 5 years' time, where we want to be in 10 years' time, because that literally, like, look, it like opens up our whole being to what might be possible rather than holding on really tightly and keeping everything super small, keeping everything super safe, which our nervous systems are actually telling us to do. So the two things are kind of at odds with each other. So that's what came up through the gingerbread person. And then in the personal and the professional side, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat, there's this other part of unearthing either nostalgia or parts of ourselves that can really be really very beautiful from the point of view of storytelling that can link to where we are now. So, for example, in my professional world this year, I've traveled for work. I traveled overseas to America, to New Orleans, to speak at the Writer MBA conference. I've spoken about it a little bit in my words, but one of the reasons that I felt compelled to do that is because personally I love traveling. So it feels like there's more of a story to tell around that, the reason why I did it, and then why it felt like such a beautiful opportunity this year, but also what might be on my vision board for the next 5 years. So there's something really lovely in that, and bringing in some of those stories from when I was younger and I was traveling as a solo female, and then I went and did that again a couple of decades later this year. So there are these stories that can come out of us that exist to re-inspire people, reconnect people, really make people feel something like, oh, like I feel like I would want that for myself, or I feel like in 5 years' time when the kids are a bit older, I might do something like Claire's done, you know? So those points of understanding what we love to do and where our audience love to meet us is just a gorgeous thing to do, and it's where the alchemy comes in. So let's see what you guys are sharing in the chat. So Eleanor says, my writing seems to be the thing that connects everything else. Yeah, for sure. And that's the point that we're going to go into next as well. So Joe's saying, I'm feeling a lot of relief in realizing that the educate piece is not as important as I thought it was. I've been worrying I'm not educating enough, and realizing that my people are more interested in feeling inspired, moved, and that sense of belonging. Totally, totally. And especially at the moment because of the nervous system piece that I mentioned. So our nervous systems are constantly looking for safety in this online environment. So I've been able to curate my Instagram feed so it is a joy. You know, there's funny dogs in there, there's renovational transformations, there's people that I find inspiring in the online space. You know, it is an inspiring place that takes a bit of work. And of course, sometimes things can creep in. But I think to do our best creative work, we really need to take care of our nervous systems, because our nervous systems are the only thing that really remind us what it is that we have to hold, you know? So if I am doing the school run and I'm still trying to process a news bulletin, I don't watch the news, but if I did, if I'm still trying to process a news bulletin, I'm not being present with my daughter who's chuntering on about going to gymnastics club tonight, or like who she played with in the playground. So it puts us in this kind of fight or flight place where we feel we've got to process all of the wounds of the world. And actually, it's a really difficult place to create from, unless we have chosen to be an activist and to talk to those specific things. So sometimes what happens in online life is people want to talk about something because it's current and it's in the news, and that's not at all what their audience signed up for. And they're like, I don't want any more of this. Like, my nervous system can't take it. I'm not here for this. Creating an online home and having your audience feel safe means they feel safe to recommend you. They know what you're about. They know when an email comes in or an Instagram post pops up, they know what they're going to receive. If you're all over the place and you're not really clear on what it is that you're doing online, then they don't know either. And so you just get these kind of two nervous systems meeting. And it's not conducive to growth. It's not conducive to you being clear either. And I just think we really need to take care of ourselves more so than ever before. Things that we see online become real in our nervous systems without us realizing it. So, you know, you might start to get a headache or a sore back, and it's literally because your body cannot process the amount of things, trauma, news bulletins that we're seeing. Like, nobody can process that. We're not equipped as a human race to process that. There's nowhere for it to go. rant over. So staying creative is about taking care of our nervous systems, taking care of our well-being, recognizing that this is a beautiful person coming into our space, and that's lovely. Sometimes it'll be people doing the follow for follow, whatever. We don't give that much attention. We crack on because we are creating always for our person. Um, Good. Okay. Let's see. You guys are saying other things in here. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. Great. So one of the things that happened to me on Instagram, which was a bit of a pattern interrupt, when it happened, was that when I gave birth to my daughter in the pandemic, there was this beautiful mum that reached out that was doing pandemic birth stories with mums. I'd never been on a podcast before, maybe been on one podcast before, and she wanted me to come on our podcast and talk about what I'd gone through. I was promoting a journal that I'd created at the time, Creativity Island for Mums. And so it was like a perfect opportunity to have a bit of a different stage and to work with her in getting in front of a different audience set. She voice noted me on Instagram, and I remember thinking it was the strangest thing. You know, when it like came in, I was like, whoa, like everybody was obviously just at that time texting, and like that's what you did, even though we did have the capacity to voice note on Instagram. So this was 2020. But actually, it was really beautiful because it enabled me to feel really safe in her company, to figure out, you know, what we had in common. She's from the south of England, I'm from the northeast of England. Like we got a rapport with each other before we did the podcast. And it actually ended up being like a really beautiful piece that I'm really incredibly proud of, that I actually spoke up when things were still, you know, really wobbly. Things were a bit raw. Like there was so much to say and there was so much of a voice that I wanted to share in solidarity with other women. That was really the reason that I did it. My point in telling you that story is that sometimes people's behavior on the internet can throw us. Like sometimes people have a bit of a strange way of saying things or a communication style that doesn't match with ours. So the biggest tip that I can give you is about leading with curiosity, because quite often something comes in either to the DMs or in email, or you know, maybe it's on Substack in a comment or in reply to your newsletter, and you're not really sure whether this is your person or not, but it's a prime opportunity to get to know them and to understand whether there is a point of connection between the two of you. So people do reach out in quirky ways. People do leave comments, you know, genuinely. It does happen. It's not all contrived. You know, there is people who genuinely want to connect. And the more that you can invite connection, I'll meet you in the comments, I'd love to know what you think, the stronger you'll feel in terms of your own audience development, and the clearer it'll all feel for you. So just a little mention of that. Some of the biggest celebrations I've had in my journey of being online for as long as I have now, and I do feel it's been a long time, have been those pieces of alchemy that have been so unexpected. So I'm just doing my thing online, you know, writing my notes on Substack, doing my Instagram posts, and then all of a sudden Beth Kempton pops into my inbox and is like, I really love what you're about. Would you like to come and teach a class paid for my new program? And I was just like, what? Like, how on earth does this happen? You know, how does someone that I feel really inspired by and really yeah, really connected to just appear on my inbox? And it's like, oh, because she's a person in the world and I'm a person in the world, and that's what happens. So there are so many examples of that that I feel have happened because of the way that I've been able to congruently show up online, and because I've been able to hold the expansiveness of what I really want for the legacy of my work. I know that sounds really big, but holding this expansiveness of legacy at the same time as recognizing the people that are coming in and alchemizing what that relationship is between you and a subscriber, or you and a reader, or you and a paid subscriber, or you and a follower is really where the magic exists. It's all, for the most part, genuine connection. Even if the genuine connection is someone hoping that you follow them back, they might be hoping for a relationship. So loads of alchemy possible when it comes to collaborating, reaching out to people, all of that gorgeous stuff. When we write long form or talk something out, it really, really gives us that chance to unearth the deeper stuff in our psyche and in our subconscious. So, one of the things that I really struggled with Instagram was because it was a photo first platform when I came to it, and haven't been a great photographer. I think I'm better now. Was it was hard to get that connection piece across to people. And so one of the things that I really advocate for is you writing a letter to this person, this ideal reader, and saying what it is that you really want to say to them and about yourself. So that's like a bit of homework, if you like. When we are writing and writing and writing or speaking something out, we get to the real gold, like almost about when we're going to wrap up, So sometimes we might get a strong opener to start, but a lot of the time we've got to unearth, we've got to write long form, we've got to speak things out, we've got to mull on something, we've got to sit with something for longer. So I think the short form content is almost like the wrong way round. It's like, oh, I've got to fit this into this many characters, or I've got to say it in a couple of slides, or I've got to try and find a way to grab someone's attention in the reel. For me, it's all long form first, and then the long form helps to inspire the short form. So, long form would be podcasting, emails, articles, posts on a platform like Substack or on your own blog. And then the short form would be Pinterest pins, Instagram posts, TikToks if you do TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all of the other things. So we extract from the long form to the short form. Is that making sense for everybody so far? So we're going to go into that a little bit to wrap up the class, and then I will be around for questions that you guys have. I'm going to just share actually what Lou has said in the chat, just because it's super helpful for people to realize how things are landing as we go through these exercises. So Lou's saying, this has been so interesting for my gingerbread person. I've got, what do they want? Connection, clarity, stability from which to have space to grow, consistency and control my life and work on my terms, agency and choice. Love that word of agency. Yes. Family, sense of belonging with my people in my home, joy in their day to day, and a sense of building towards something that will bring them more happiness. How do they feel? Confused, tangled thoughts, scrambled brain, overwhelmed, stuck, often for some time, lack of rhythm, days aren't their own. Interesting, because I know they feel overwhelmed and I don't want to add to that, but I'm still figuring out how to cut through some of the noise with something that gives someone that feeling of space. So what I would say as a mentor, reading all of that, is you are the witness to where they are at. So nothing to fix, nothing to do. It is the witnessing. So the posts where I talk about like, oh my goodness, like this has happened today and that's happened today, and I feel like I didn't get everything done, but actually I'm just super proud of myself. Like those sorts of connection pieces that are just about, this is a wild ride that we're all living. So it's that. And I think starting with that and then seeing what happens, so you might just give yourself the permission to talk about personally how you're managing the days, and you might, do that 3 times a week potentially. You might write a really long piece that you add to throughout the month, every single month, and then curate into a long form blog post or a long form newsletter for Substack or another platform. So lots of thoughts in there. So Marie Louise is saying what they want: feeling moved, comfort and solace, gorgeous sense of belonging, and ultimately a sense of possibility and hope. How they feel heard and seen, motivated, creatively inspired, validated, allowed to be or feel the way they do. Yeah, the permission slip piece is massive, being witnessed, because social media has taught us everybody's got it figured out and we haven't. And it's just not true. Like, we've grown through that, and things are being shared more authentically and more honestly now. But I see this on Substack as well, and it really bothers me. It's like, God, everybody is just smashing it with all of these accolades. And it's like, well, no, like there's been 30 years worth of a career before this particular accolade, or there's been generational wealth before that, or there's been an inroad and a door opened with a person, through a family friend. There's all stuff. We never see the nuance, do we? So yeah, I think that's really important. And these words that you guys are coming up with, these are really beautiful words to sit with and kind of go, okay, like, is this word asking more of me? Like, is this word asking me to speak on this topic longer term? Is this a podcast series? Is this a series of lives or guest posts, or can I pull this out further? It's always about pulling more on that, especially when you read your work back and you're like, oh yeah, like that's the thing. That is the word that I want. Um, Okay, so in terms of unearthing your creative practice, this is where we're going to go next. So, creative practice is everything that I'm about, everything, everything, everything. I remember when I was making, we were making this beautiful project in children's centres, and it was around artist-inspired teepees. So the artist would come and work with the children, and the children would come up with ideas for what should be printed on the teepees, and then the teepees would become these beautiful pop-up worlds for the children. So they would have a set of different like play items with them and sensory items with them. It was for under five, so it was all about how we were going to transform this essentially like a plain hall, a school hall, into this wonderful set of pop-up worlds. So when we were doing this work, the artists that I work with, love them, Yvette and Judith, were very keen on talking about how their practice, how their creative practice as artists met the children where they were at. So they have, 30 years worth of practice, more so actually with Judith, of committing to something and making themselves experts in it, but they have a curiosity about where it meets the children because children come up with the best ideas. Like every time you ask children for an opinion on anything, like you're going to get something fantastical, expansive, something you haven't thought of. It was honestly the biggest privilege of my life to do that for 20 years and work in that way for 20 years because it was constantly pushing boundaries. It was like, what are they going to come up with next? Okay, like we've got to make a magic dragon that's going to live in this world, and this is going to be about something else. It's never what people want it to be. Like adults would be like, okay, pirates and fairies, that's enough. No, it'll be like a dragon with two noses who like has 17 legs. Like it's just wild. Anyway, so the artist spoke about creative practice, and it was my job as a creative producer to help them to meet in the middle. So the artist saw things in one way, the children had ideas in another way, and the children's centre wanted to do things, it was a lot about health and safety actually. But it was my job as a creative producer for that work to be like, okay, like how do we create art out of this? How do we create connection? How do we create an end product that sees the children recognize themselves back, that they know that they came up with that fantastical idea and someone has made it a reality. So we can learn from this and we can glean from this as we're doing this work because it's the meeting place between what you want to unearth and what you want to write and what your audience are turning towards that really helps you to understand what to put out. So the meeting place is a quite a good way in for the shorter form content. So if you write something long form, um, the simplest thing to do is say on Instagram, I've written something, like I'll send you the link, or you can head to my bio and you can get the link. We're going to go a layer deeper than that because it doesn't work that well. It works a little bit, it doesn't work that well. We're going to work out, okay, but what is the point of connection? What is the point of inspiration? What is the point of feeling? And then we're going to talk specifically to that point. So, for your last long form thing that you did, whether it was a podcast, a newsletter, an article, go into that and have a look. Going back to that list that I gave you at the beginning, which was connection, education, inspiration, and feeling. I'll put this in the chat and figure out what it is. Like, what are you pulling out for short form content? Do, 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 do. So, what are we pulling out of the long form content that gives our audience inspiration or feeling? Okay, right, I'll give you a couple of minutes. Let me know when you're done. Okay, anything resonating for you guys? I'm going to put in the chat the one that I looked at. Like, I'm just doing it in real time with you guys because I've not done anything with this one particularly yet. So, this was a piece I wrote about risk and creative risk, and what I feel when I connect to it with my own framework is that there's something inspiring about the practice of taking risk. So, thinking back to a story of nostalgia and thinking about the first time I posted on Instagram and just felt like so weird about it, or even like the first time I posted it on the internet, like the internet at large, and feeling so weird about it, feels like a place that I could go for that kind of storytelling piece of connection and then that expansive feeling of inspiration. Not like a, oh, look at us now, because obviously it does depend on how we're feeling. Week in, week out, but I do think there's something in there that I can pull a more nuanced thought for social media. And the next piece of this is that nuanced thought being universal enough to last longer, so to last a longer time, because the whole point of me running this class with you guys is to try and give you some tools and a skill set to think about something lasting a longer time, something that you can repost and revisit and go deeper with across multiple platforms. So Grania says, think connection and inspiration, but I'm not fully sure. Joe's saying belonging and inspiration. Yeah, so we're taking just a piece of what we've written out and trying to look at, okay, where does our ideal person connect with us? Like, where's the point of connection on that? What could I speak about that is universal enough to put across other platforms? Marie Louise is saying inspiration. Beautiful. So that point of inspiring somebody, or something being inspiring, remember when we connect to that person and everything sort of wakes up inside of them, they're more likely to want to get to know us on a deeper level, go back and read our archive, listen to our podcast if we've got one, read some more of our new Instagram posts that come out. So if we know what that feeling is, it's really helpful to know that we're already doing the audience alchemy work. So Joe says, mine is the sense of belonging because of my congruence and humanness. So people are feeling real life and feeling they see themselves in my writing. Yeah. So that connection piece of seeing a person in your writing. So from long form, and this is the last teaching piece, because obviously I have rattled through, like this was just like a bit of a sort of, a bit of a kindling class, really, to get you thinking about how we can do more with our creative practice online. When we have a piece that we've written that is long form or a podcast piece, and we know what social media does. So social media is to grab attention, right? So nobody is going on social media thinking, I'm just going to catch up with this person. Like that might be a byproduct of being on there, but on social media, like people are waiting for their attention to be pulled, right? So you have to pull their attention and say the thing that you want to say. If you want to get them to read a long form piece or to listen to a podcast, that might happen, but more so the social media piece is getting that connection so that they get to know you on a deeper level. So one of the things you can do when you look back over this work is go back to your bio and think about how that is connecting. Your bio on Substack or your bio on your website, your bio on Instagram, like, is this connecting with my ideal reader? But when you are grabbing their attention on a theme, or on a concept that you have put out in the world in a longer form, more nuanced way, you have the opportunity to just draw them in a little bit. So it's like the breadcrumbs really from the gingerbread house. Like, how are you drawing them into your world? How are you drawing them into conversation? Do you want them to comment? Do you want to chat with them in the DMs about this universal thing, about this point of connection, whatever it is? Where is the alchemy? Where is the alchemy that stops the scroll? Where is the alchemy that stops them feeling like they're just on to sort of be passive and be entertained? Like, how are you going to make them connect and feel something? Social media is the grab piece, so you're grabbing their attention and you're drawing them into conversation. The longer form, an evergreen element of what we do is actually, so much easier, so much easier. And I think that people forget this, the constant hamster wheel of social media or feeling like we've got to put ourselves in front of our audience all the time leaves us forgetting that actually there are platforms that do the work for us. So an example would be YouTube, another example would be Pinterest, another example would be the archive of your Substack or the archive of your blog. There is so much that you've already done that you are not resharing with the world, that you are not pulling from, because we're constantly taught we've got to do more. Things only last 24 hours on Instagram stories. And actually, no, the real work of audience alchemy is getting people to go deeper into our archive and deeper into those nuanced thoughts and connect with us in a slower, calmer space. So when I was first growing on Substack, I didn't show up on Instagram at all. I didn't need to. Now I have a different focus for Instagram, which is about new people into my world and connection with the behind the scenes, because it's sort of more difficult to get the behind the scenes across on Substack. So those are my points of connection there with Instagram, and I feel very clear about why I'm showing up to a platform before I go and show up there. So um clarity for you guys as we wrap up, and then we'll do our questions, I promise. Thinking about your long form, thinking about your social media, and then thinking about your evergreen. So three places. If you just split your page into three, and we go much more into this in the Audience Alchemy program, but just for now. So you've got your long form, you've got your socials, which is grabbing attention, and then you've got your evergreen. So just like that, you've got your long form content, your podcast or your blog on your website or your Substack. You've got your social media, which is grabbing the attention. So Substack notes or Instagram stories, threads. How are you grabbing attention from this long form piece? So like not just like random, from the long form piece. And then you've got your evergreen. What are you doing to fuel something more evergreen? So an example of that could be that you, like me, start a YouTube channel and there's more on there that gets watched years and years and years. Compound might be that you start a Pinterest account and you can create pins that then lead people back to the long form content. It could be that the podcast content just needs reshared on socials and you just grab the attention again and you're like, I really love this episode that I shared with X person. There's so many different ways to do it, but just write yourself a little creative practice, a little system that you think is achievable for you. If when I say YouTube and Pinterest, you're like, oh no, I don't know. No, I can't do those. I've got enough going on. Then just be aware that every time you go on social media to grab attention, it's all of like seconds. Whereas with an evergreen platform, you've got more chance of capturing people. It feeds SEO. It's all really good. So an evergreen platform could also be your blog. An evergreen platform could also be you resharing your most popular articles from 6 months ago, a year ago. Like you can do that too. So you could share those on Substack. You could share them in your newsletter if you don't write on Substack. There's so many ways with this. So you don't have to think, oh, I'll have to start a YouTube channel or a Pinterest. You don't have to. It's just about you understanding we're not going to let that long form content go because that's our precious work and we can revisit it and bring it back in front of people in a multitude of different ways. So 1, 2, and 3, and then we will open up to questions if you guys have any. Oh, Joe's saying, I do love Pinterest. I actually do fancy doing that. There's a class, Joe, in Sparkle by Sophie Ingleby that talks through how to do Pinterest for Substack. So you might want to start there. That's a good one. Yes, you can pin Substack articles for sure. Again, you'd be looking for the point of connection. You know, it's never like I wrote a new Substack. It's always like foraging in autumn. And then obviously it leads them through. Don't tell them about the platform, just tell them about the thing that they want to connect on. Yeah. So Lou, I think this is a real breakthrough. So Lou is saying about potentially that education is more for a Substack long form platform and inspiration is more for Instagram short form social media, grabbing attention to lead people into the education. That is a perfect example of creative practice, and that was what I was hoping to get some of you guys to today. So that nuance of like, this is how my work is and fits with my audience, and this is what I'm going to do now. And it just gives that clarity of like, what am I on this platform to do? Like, what am I doing today? It stops any of the like periods of going dark because you don't know what to post because you're really clear on what you want to post. And lots of us now have been building this work for a long time. So there's loads of power in the archive as well. Beautiful. Um, So Izzy's saying, could a freebie mini course be called Evergreen? Yeah, so if you go into products, and we'll do this in Audience Alchemy when I launch the program, if you go into products and that product feels like it is universal and can last over a period of years and it's on your website, you would definitely just need something that was free to lead the audience into it. So you could have an Instagram post and then put ad spend behind it. You could have a blog post on your website that you bring out. You could have a podcast episode that you reshare and you put on Pinterest. You could make a new YouTube video and promote a new lead magnet that you've got for that course. So there's lots of different ways in within content ecosystems, but again, it's what feels intuitive and good to you and something that you can replicate. So you're not constantly starting each month going, oh, what am I going to post this month? The idea really is that it comes from the creative practice of long form and nuance because there's more power in that than just doing the grabby hooks thing. Um, yeah, Vicky, have a look at that class. It's in the archive. It should be in the A to Z. If you look under P, it'll probably be in there. It was one of the first ones I recorded actually when I first started Sparkle. Um, Beautiful. Okay, so hopefully, you guys have got some ideas around developing this insight into your audience. There's so much that you can do, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I just want you to start noticing the people that come into your world, the people that comment, the people that follow, the people that subscribe. There's so much intelligence there around where they are meeting your work. You don't have to change anything. It's just that we can go more deeply into being more clear. So as we're getting that clarity, it can be really helpful as we want to grow because we know exactly who we're speaking to. And again, it's not the one person. And then we've got the piece of long form going into like the social media grabby piece and then the evergreen. So it works for us while we're asleep. So it brings new people into our world while we're not doing anything. To get that, which is obviously what social media is, we have to be constantly posting on socials. And then you've also got this piece of the blend of the personal and the professional. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see in people's about pages. They've taken what they've learned on LinkedIn or on their CV, and then they've also tried to sort of blend it with a bit of personal stuff, but it's like clunky, it's like a Frankenstein. So we have to understand what is the storytelling piece of why we ended up doing the work that we were doing or why we ended up giving up that work that we were doing, but what we always liked about it. So it has to tell a story. Like it can't just be a list of accolades because nobody connects with that. It just doesn't work. So we have to become storytellers in our own narrative of why we've ended up doing what we're doing. It really helps with connection. Good. Okay, so questions. I'm going to stop talking. I'll have a little drink of my cold coffee. Have you guys got any questions about creating online, long form stuff, evergreen stuff? Anything you want to ask, you can pop it in the chat or you can unmute, completely up to you. If you want to go, you can go. It's all good. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to think. I feel like no one can watch my classes at 1.5 or 2 speed because I always pack so much in and people are like, wait, what? Slow down. I think if anything, people watch on the replay and then pause. Joe's saying she's just full. Is there anything that you want to ask me about what I've been doing to build in the way that I have? Is there anything that you feel like I haven't shared or you would like more intel on, like how I do things, how I show up in multiple places, how I outsource any of that stuff? Anything around that?
I've got a question, Claire. I think something
Good.
about that other people in the chat have been touching on as well, like as we're sort of looking at our audience and looking at a particular avatar, and lots of us, I think, have more than one kind of avatar or maybe like two different groups. I certainly have like two different groups that I feel like I identify with, and I quite often feel torn between which one to work with. Um, and perhaps because I do stuff in person and on Substack, it's like Substack is one and then in person is a different one.
Mhm.
Can you just speak to anything about how you choose one or whether, like, I feel basically pressure of time and not feeling like I have the time to just, oh, I'll do it all with all of this and then I'll do the whole process again with this side and
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, I really just want to just conserve my energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I can definitely speak to that. So I think when I first started Sparkle on Substack, for example, it was about people who were beginning on Substack, but also people who wanted to stay creative on Substack and really resonated with the line that I had at that time, being a creative who also writes. So it was that big permission slip. Like there was a lot of grammar police at that time, and there's less of them now. But it was like, no, no, we can all write here. Like we can all use this beautiful platform. So in that piece, it was the beginner and the creative expressionist. So I was able to use my words to reach both of those types of people. And then it started becoming people who wanted to stay with me over a longer time and felt really inspired by the stuff that I was doing. And then it became business owners who were like, I really want to utilize this for business. So that's a lot of different types of people. You know, I have people that want to write because they're passionate about writing and don't need to monetize. I have people that are brand new to the platform. And then I have business owners who are like, give me it as quickly as possible and don't waffle on. So, you know, so it was like a lot in one. And so what I ended up being able to do was kind of slice up what I had and send people in different directions. So at the point of them receiving the welcome email, and if they paid, they'll get a DM, it sends them whichever direction they want to go. So it acknowledges the beginners. And then it also acknowledges the creative expressionists, and then it also speaks to the business owners. And so I had to work quite hard on making that a piece that I could copy and paste and that it works in the welcome email as well. But it is just about speaking to all of the types of people. So for you, it would be you've been out on a walk recently and you spotted something that you thought you might be able to forage, but you weren't really sure about that. I was so pleased when I was able to offer these classes in person in Northumberland because of X, Y, and Z. You're not alienating anybody in that sentence because you're talking about your lived experience, but anybody that lives geographically close to you is going to be like, oh, Jo lives close to me. Like I could go there because she does that. And that's what's inspired her to teach about foraging. Anybody that lives further away just feels like they've been told a nice story. Does that make sense? So it's just when you're writing it out, just knowing that people are going to be inspired by your lived experience, but also recognize, oh, this is something I can come to. And for you, and we've spoken about this before, I don't see any harm, and I speak to other people about this as well, in saying what's coming up, you know, what's coming up, ways to work with me in person, because the other people that can't work with you in person will just tune out or scroll past and they'll still meet you in the comments. It's like you're not alienating anybody if you've done the storytelling piece beforehand, which is why I started with that exercise of the personal and the professional. So we always lead with storytelling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's helpful. Thanks, Claire.
And it takes time. So, you know, I would be writing a piece and then I would go back and edit from this kind of avatar place and be like, am I really speaking to these people? Because sometimes we're holding ourselves back and we don't realize we're holding ourselves back because we're scared of the unsubscribes or we're scared about not being like popular or people not getting it. Whereas if we write to our ideal people, you can really like, you know, like throw it all out there because they're so pleased to be there. And that's such a refreshing place to write from rather than being like palatable, you know, you can get it all in there. So I think that piece of being fearless and less bothered about the numbers means that you just repel the people that maybe aren't like there for the right reasons and get closer to the people that are. So yeah, it is a practice in being fearless, I think. Some of this like speaking the truth, you know, speaking that truth out. Um, okay. So Ellen is saying, how many hours a week do you spend building your business? Okay, so for me, audience development and business development are two separate things. So business ecosystems and audience ecosystems are two separate things. And so I work on both through the week. I work 4 days a week. When things got really, really busy for me last year, I was hiring VAs to help and I was drowning in emails and I didn't have my systems set up in the way that I needed them to. So things were really pressured and I did find myself waking up at 5 to like get work done and stuff before my kids got up on the weekend and stuff. I still feel like I was building it on my terms. I was very ambitious about doing the work that I wanted to do, but it was hard. And now I'm very clear it's 4 days a week and then I delete Substack and Instagram off my phone. Those are the two main places that I show up. So I delete those apps off my phone and then I just live in my life. So I think that we can be conscious and we can choose. Because I run my business the same way I run my audience development, as in my business works for me while I'm asleep because it's a global business. So sales will come in every morning pretty much. So I've been asleep and then people have bought things in America or are buying things in Australia, and that's how it works. With audience development, it's the same principles. So I go through this more in like my mastermind and my mini mind type containers. But once you have your creative practice around audience development, I think it's really easy to apply it to business. And so I definitely wasn't a business owner when I was a freelancer. I was terrible at business, awful, really bad, because I always ran out of money because I had invoices outstanding. I hadn't like managed things properly. It was really stressful. Whereas as a business owner, all I did was relate what I know about audience development longer term to business. And I was like, oh, there we go then. And I have had some amazing mentors. It's not all me. But yeah, that's what it looks like. Izzy, in terms of a typical workflow. So I change it up because I get bored easily. So I give myself a structure to work within. So for Creatively Conscious, which is my paid newsletter, I write every single Sunday, and that usually gets written on a Tuesday in my Write Your Heart Out session. So I have a members Write Your Heart Out session, so I usually write it then, and that feels really good. So I know that that piece is there. So I might lead with a little bit of a teaser to that. I might also share that the following week. So that's already like a couple of pieces where I can share on socials. What I've looked at for building my audience in this next chapter of the year is working with a Pinterest manager. So I previously had VAs who would create Pinterest pins for me, but since I hired my Pinterest manager, she's got a handle on my whole business suite and like everything that I'm doing. So that's been working really, really well for click-throughs. So it's like I might check in with her, but then she sort of cracks on. With YouTube, I had a specific goal in mind. So with YouTube, I wanted to monetize it, and I gave myself a bit of a deadline with that. So everything that I was doing to try and get views on YouTube, I needed to kind of cultivate and learn. But I didn't do that quickly. Like I gave myself 2 years to learn that and monetize my channel. So now with YouTube, it just feels very intuitive. Like a quick tutorial is what my YouTube people tend to want. And that just feels really nice to do. So I'll just kind of I'll sort of batch record those a couple of times a month. But yeah, I mean, I change it up all of the time because for me, it's a bit like levers. Do you know, like in Willy Wonka, where there's like different levers and stuff, and then all of a sudden, like an everlasting gobstopper pops out. Like that's what I feel. It's like, oh, we just pull the levers and different things happen. And then ultimately, you get an audience that wants to stay with you for the long term. Sometimes people pop in and they disappear again and they come back. But ultimately, like we've got to find it joyful. I don't think any of the blueprints out there talk about creative practice. And I'm so passionate about it because I'm like, if we're in our creative practice, it just feels really good. So if my energy's low, I'm just like, oh, my energy's low. What will I do today? But it all happens. I think that's been very sprawling of an answer, but yeah, hopefully I've spoken to it a little bit. Um, so Marie Louise is saying, have an audience in mind. Is it useful or even best to have two separate publications? I'm hesitating because that sounds too much work, and also because it would be splitting myself in two. I guess I'm just wondering if people could be interested in my diverse creative journey, painting and poetry, writing and reflective essays, or would prefer something more specific. No. Instagram, taught us the niche, like niche so people know what it is, niche so people feel like they're at a market, and then they get the everlasting gobstopper over there and the candy floss over there, and they're going to have both of those things. And then we all just got really sick of all the things. There was just too many things. We don't have to niche. We can be a beautiful, wholehearted human. We can tell our stories and we can pour it all into a Substack publication. The only reason that I've got two is because one is very clearly a Substack education space and not everybody wants that. Like people like to just quiet that noise and do their own thing. The other one is always just going to be my wholehearted digital magazine. And I'm just so proud of being able to talk about motherhood and like the trials and tribulations of life and have a space for personal memoir and behind the scenes of my business. And Substack education was just too big to fit into that container. So I had to have the two. But for the most part, you're one person and you can guide people in different ways. There's so many clever ways on Substack, using sections and tags and working with your audience to help them understand where to go for certain parts of what it is that you're doing. even the cross-pollination, like I did an Instagram shout out thread last week on notes, and I subscribed, like followed lots of new people on Instagram, lots of new people followed me, and it feels like we've got that behind the scenes connection to each other's worlds, and I love that, you know. It's just different, isn't it, with the long form. Um, so, Joe saying I've had nothing but good feedback from my readers for starting to share my art on my foraging-based publication. Yeah, because for me, Joe, it's about that calm nervous system piece. Like, I know I'm not going to get upset by coming to your space. So, really, anything that you share, whether it's art, whether it's storytelling, whether it's photos of nature, whether it's foraging and the practice of foraging, which I've only done once with you, you know, it's like it's all going to be there. Like the point for me is like I'm going to feel soothed. So that feeling bit of the framework is how I feel when I land on your space. Um, yeah, so the niche thing, I just think no. I just think we are multi-passionate people. I do think we've got a lot about us. Obviously, what can build in one platform is like, so my Pinterest manager, she's not talking about everything that I do in the world. She's talking specifically about Substack, and she's helping people to understand the resources that I have about Substack. So the niche exists there. So the niche exists in the long form. But I do think when we are coming to in the long term, sorry, I should say, I do think when we're coming to long form content, that's where we can unearth all of the nuance, and that's where we can really lean into the creative practice piece. Um, okay, guys, so I'm going to go, but it's been so, so beautiful to spend this time with you. Thank you for being so wholehearted. I am going to design up now, we've led the class, a PDF workbook to accompany it. So if you want to go back through the replay, if you want to revisit it anytime, you're really welcome to do that. And I'll be opening the doors for Audience Alchemy, the program and community really soon. So you're so welcome to check that out. There'll be a special offer for you guys that have seen the class. So look out for that. Any questions, you know where I am. Thanks everyone. It's been so beautiful. See you again really soon. Take care.